This week on the NFC West Mixtape, where Rob Stats Guerrero of the Gold Standard Network and I, Dan Viens from Seahawks Forever, talk about the best division in football. Really can't be argued at this point. All the numbers back it up. We'll touch on that a little bit as well as recap week 13. But we're going to take a big picture view now of the top three teams in this division, all with 9 wins, all destined for the playoffs. We're going to run some simulators. Who has the best odds of winning the division? And then we'll take a team-by-team look and identify one factor for each team that we think will ultimately determine whether or not they do win the division. An overarching look at the 3 contenders in the NFC West coming up next on this week's edition of the NFC West Mixtape.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Take advantage of the Sizzle All the Way sale going on right now at Omaha Steaks. USDA certified steaks, individually cryo-packed, delivered to your door in a cold case. And right now is the best time ever if you haven't tried these steaks. This is a family-run business. Been doing this for over 100 years. My family's been eating these steaks since I was just a kid. They are an outstanding way to present a gift to the beef eaters that you love in your family. And everyone's just a little tired of turkey right now, aren't they? Well, right now, if you go to omahasteaks.com, use the promo code FOREVER, you're going to get 50% off site-wide, plus an additional $35 off at checkout. That's half off, plus $35 off at checkout. Go to omahasteaks.com, use the promo code FOREVER. All right, let's get into this. We didn't talk last week, gave you guys the week off for Thanksgiving, but things are really heating up in this division now. We get into the nitty-gritty of who has the best path to winning this division moving forward. This is a conversation Rob and I had this week. Please enjoy. Rob, it's good to see you again. Of course, we didn't get together last week because of Thanksgiving. So let me just ask you this. How was your holiday? Saw pictures of you, your lovely family that you posted. And also, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food item? It's always a debate around this time of year.
Thanksgiving was good. Thank you. My actually favorite thing about Thanksgiving is the turkey sandwich the day after with the turkey, the bread. You put the cranberry sauce in there too. I love a good leftover turkey sandwich.
Oh, yeah. And we had a lot of debates last week about ham, turkey, prime rib, and some people don't like turkey. And I'm with you, though. 90% of the reason I'm a turkey guy on Thanksgiving is for what comes next. One of these days, I didn't get a chance to do it this week. There's too much going on, but one of these days, I'm going to try. Have you seen the technique where you take the stuffing and you put it in a waffle iron to actually make the bread out of it? Maybe Christmas. I'll take care of that.
Okay.
In the meantime, we had some football stuff happen. Although after a couple of weeks of the division kind of, the round robin tournament, as we called it, beating each other up, they strayed elsewhere. So we'll do a little bit of a recap, and then we'll talk a little bit more big picture now as we have 6 games left. We just took the week off. Things are really heating up in this division race. We'll take a close look at what some of the odds look like and some of the projections as far as winning the division between these 3 teams. And first of all, let's start here. People are still trying to convince themselves and others that the NFC North is the best division in football. But last time I checked, there's only one division in this entire league that all has 9 wins among their top 3 teams. I mean, hands down, it's the best division in football.
And the Lions are going to get beat tonight by the Cowboys. And so the Lions will fall even further back in the NFC. It's the West. It's not close. It is the West. If the Cardinals weren't such a tire fire, then no one would even be bringing it up.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's even more pronounced when you look at, I don't want to give too much away. Point differential.
We're out of it.
Point differential, Seahawks, Rams, 1-2 in the NFL. The Niners have really come a long way. The last time you and I talked, they were -10. They're up to +38 now. Let's start with the Niners. They had one of those games last week that some people might be quick to dismiss as kind of ho-hum. There wasn't a lot of drama. It was one of those workman-like wins where they just kind of did what they had to do, but ended up making it look like a comfortable win. To me, as we get down to playoff time, I don't dismiss wins like this. I think wins like this actually are more of a stronger argument that a team is ready for the playoffs, because you can win in different ways and you can win when you don't have a good fastball.
I thought it was just a reassuring game plan because everybody was freaking out because Brock Purdy was coming off the 3-interception performance against the Panthers on Monday Night Football. And so it was Brock, don't screw it up. Don't let that defense win the game for the Browns. And it's exactly what the 49ers did. They didn't have a ton of success driving down the field against that defense, which not a lot of people do. But guess what? They waited for the Browns to give them opportunities. The Browns absolutely did. And the Niners capitalized almost every single time. And they just handled their business. It was exactly what you wanted to see. Brock Purdy did not make any stupid decisions with the football at all. He ran for a touchdown. He threw a touchdown. No notes.
Yet another injury for the 49ers, although this one would seem to maybe not be as impactful at one of the guard positions because they were rotating guys there anyway, right? So it's not like they're going to an unknown quantity.
No, Ben Barch was rotating there, but his body will not let him play football. That's why they were rotating him in, because they were worried he couldn't do it full time and he couldn't do it part time, as it turns out. So Spencer Burford will be in at left guard. Yeah, they've been rotating guys there all season. So, I don't think it's going to be, there'll be some impact, but I don't think it's going to be too big.
Yeah, and they held Myles Garrett to just 1 sack. I thought that in and of itself.
He is unbelievable. He teleports to the quarterback. That's how he has so many damn sacks, because he doesn't actually travel the physical space required to get there. He just appears at your quarterback. He's on a completely other level. He went up against the Hall of Famer and Trent Williams almost all game long. Every single play the 49ers ran was geared towards stopping Myles Garrett from blowing it up. It was unbelievable. He is phenomenal, but he can't do it himself. And the 49ers ultimately won.
The 1 sack, too, maybe one of the highlights of the week. I think they call it a Euro step or whatever, where you just go vertical or you go horizontal with your first step. He went 2 gaps with 1 step. And I don't even think Trent Williams saw him. Probably didn't even know the ball was snapped, and he was already at the quarterback. He's unbelievable. And then if you've seen the mic'd up clip with he and Kittle, it's such great stuff. Here he is. He's the most dominant, violent, fierce defensive player, and he's speaking as if he's a maitre d' at a fancy French restaurant. He's so polite while he's in between kicking your ass.
And there's another clip of him talking with Brock Purdy, because on the first play of the game, he blasts Brock. Brock got rid of the ball, and Myles Garrett just absolutely blasts him. And there's a clip. He goes up to Brock. He says, "Hey, man, I'm sorry about that first hit." Like, dude, it's so nice off the field or after the game, but during the game, he will absolutely terrorize you.
And I love Brock's response to it, because he said, "No, you woke me up. You got me into the game." I was, it was like a 6'4", 280-pound smelling salt.
Yeah, there are easier ways to get woken up. I'll say that.
Yeah, indeed. Meanwhile, the Rams went out and did something that the last time you and I talked, we didn't think was possible. This team had won 6 in a row. Matt Stafford was on a historically significant heater, broke the record for consecutive touchdown passes without an interception in between. I think it was 28, breaking Peyton Manning's record. And then he goes and throws 2 interceptions against the Panthers. It looks like a letdown game. The Panthers, who've been doing some good things, this didn't come completely out of nowhere. But the way this Rams team was wired, and the way that the way that they did respond, even the week after the big win against the Seahawks, there was no letdown then. I didn't see this coming. Did you?
Not at all. But I went and rewatched this thing. Matthew Stafford, I don't know what it was. He just didn't look right in the game. Even early off, he's throwing passes and he's kind of like fading away unnecessarily. He just didn't look like himself in this game. And look, it's hard for every team to be, fully up and ready to go every game of the season. Maybe it's just a blip in the road. But I was just shocked to see Carolina push them around. They punked them a little bit. The Panthers ran the ball 40 times for 164 yards in the game. The strength of this Rams defense is supposed to be the front. That defensive line is supposed to be Carolina did not care at all. And then on 4th down, Bryce Young threw a couple dots and really made the Rams pay.
Yeah. Kudos to Dave Canales, the young head coach there, former Pete Carroll protege, that looks like he might be kind of good at this thing, and that looks like a team that's kind of on the rise. Also, I think one thing that the Seahawks, the 49ers, anyone that's going to play the Rams in the playoffs now is going to be studying that tape too, because, coming off that Seahawks win a couple of weeks ago, all the talk was about that secondary and how much better that secondary was playing. And we even talked about on the show and pushing back on the idea that maybe that was their Achilles heel and their weakness. Maybe that narrative came to an end. And yet here we are. And the Panthers kind of picked on Emmanuel Forbes a little bit. Bryce Young, had a nice game, as you said. And that secondary didn't look as locked down as they did just 2 weeks prior in that game against the Seahawks, something that we'll have to watch as we move forward. But what that loss does is it really opens up the rest of the division and just kind of brings the Seahawks and 49ers right back into the conversation that the Rams, no question, controlled a couple of weeks ago. Before we get to that, though, we want to talk about our fine sponsor for both Rob and I on our networks, the Sleeper app. If you haven't checked it out yet, there's still time. Rough week for me picking games this week. I was 9-7. That's my second worst week of the year. Looked like it was a common theme, though, throughout our pool. But this app is just the best one out there. Even if fantasy football is already wrapping up, you can pick games still. You can get in on the play-by-play real-time recap of each and every game out there. They call it Sleeper Zone. Wonder where they got that from. But there is no better app out there at following along a game if you can't get to a television set. You can even react to each and every play in real time and talk to the rest of the community that's there as well. And if you are into the games of skill, well, they're going to get you started with $20. You can see that right there on the screen without even making a deposit just for signing up. But if you do want to make a deposit, they're going to match that first one up to $100, 100%. And you have your choice here. We have a friendly little competition here. Rob,
if you want to use my
the promo code
is GSN. Please use that. That's where the smart, handsome, good-looking people generally go. Just, for your knowledge. Or you can use Dan's code.
That's great because that's a very small minority of the population. So that means the masses will be much more inclined to use my promo code, which is forever, and something that they just understand. They don't have to figure out what the acronym means, right? Terms and conditions do apply. Currently legal in 25 states. The Sleeper app, check it out today. Although I want to go back here, and this is what I was talking about with the Rams loss and what it does for the rest of the division. They still kind of control their own destiny better than the other three teams do. But this is where they sit today, and this is according to the New York Times playoff simulator. There's a couple other ones out there, but they all seem to give the same type of conclusion. Right now, the odds of winning the division, the Rams are 55%, Seahawks 29%, San Francisco 16%. Sorry, Cardinals, that adds up to 100. You're out. We'll have to talk about you again next year. Although, I don't want to completely dismiss the Cardinals. They have a say in this division race because they play the Rams this week and they play them again in Week 18. They get 2 more shots to play spoilers against the Rams.
Do something right, Cardinals. That's all we're asking. Just do one thing right, please.
Now, if I were to do this by playoff odds, it's a near certainty that all three of these teams are in the playoffs. Even the 49ers right now, although they're
even.
Well, I didn't finish my sentence.
Sorry.
Even the 49ers, who have the lowest chance, according to the New York Times, of winning the division, they are 97% to make the playoffs. I mean, it is a near certainty that all three of these teams are going to make the playoffs. But I did a little playing around with each of the individual scenarios, and this is where you can see some of the help that some of the teams might need. So, if first of all, just as clean as it can be, if the Rams win out, they win the division. It says more than 99%. It's not quite 100 yet. There's some other factors that might come into play. The Seahawks, if they win out, 99% chance, a little bit more, 99% chance to win the division. The 49ers need a little help, 73% to win the division if they win out. They only have 4 games left, so some of this is a math equation, and they only have 1 game left against a division foe in the Seahawks Week 18, a game that at the beginning of the year we might not have thought was going to mean much, but that it's meaningful now.
Yeah, it could be very impactful. And we should point out, too, that if the Seahawks win out, they will beat the Rams. So
Indeed.
That's why that is what it is, if you're wondering why that might look that way. They play each other. So, yeah, that'll be a big game. Niners Seahawks could end up being a big game as well. It is going to be so much fun the last 5 weeks of this year.
Well, and you have to think, because even though it's week 18, they schedule a Sunday night football game but they leave it open, right? I would have to imagine right now the leader in the clubhouse for that Sunday night slot, week 18, you'd have to think it'd be Seahawks and 49ers. I played around with how big that week 16 rematch against the Rams and Seahawks is looming a little bit. If the Rams were to win their next two going into that game,
okay,
and then lose to the Seahawks, their chances to win the division drop to 48%.
Wow.
Versus if they win their next three, it's 97%. They almost would wrap it up if they just go on a 3-game win streak coming off that loss to the Panthers. If the Seahawks win their next three, that only gets them to 69%. That's how big that 49ers matchup still looms in week 18. If they win the next 2 weeks and then lose in week 16 to the Rams, it drops all the way down to 11% to win the division. That's how big it is for them. Meanwhile, the 49ers, the next 2 weeks aren't really that consequential. You want to win them. If they win their next two, since they're on a bye this week, they win their next two, it bumps them up just a little bit to 28% to win the division. But of course, that math will change depending on what happens week 16 between the Rams and the Seahawks. It's remarkable, really. I honestly don't know, and we're going to play a little game here in a minute. I don't know who, as I sit here today, who I think the better team is. If all these teams played a round robin tournament where they all played each other 3 times, let's say, I don't know which team would come out on top. I really don't.
The way I used to evaluate it, and I said this in 2023 repeatedly, I said, if the 49ers play their best football, there's nobody on the planet that could beat them. That's always the way I looked at it. If you're asking me right now, if everybody plays their absolute best, I think nobody beats the Rams.
But I'm with you.
The gap there is not that big. And if they don't play their absolute best, anybody can beat anybody.
And that's been evidenced by the games they've played against each other. Every single one of them, Rams, 49ers, both games. So, well, the second game was a little bit more comfortable. But the Rams Seahawks games, it comes down to a play. The week 1, the 49ers and Seahawks, it comes down to 2 or 3 plays. Mm-hmm. That's how close these teams are. It's who makes those plays. It's remarkable. In terms of the week 16, I just watched the America's Team documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've caught that yet.
I haven't watched that specific one. No.
It's great stuff. I didn't know if I'd be interested in it because it's the Cowboys, but just from a football fan's perspective, an older football fan, like, it was great to go back and kind of relive those 2 different dynasties there with 49ers in the 80s and the Cowboys in the 90s. And it reminded me we talked about this the first time the Seahawks and Rams played, that maybe the Rams are that blind spot. They're the kryptonite for Sam Darnold, right? The Philadelphia Eagles were Troy Aikman's kryptonite. Mm-hmm. They could not beat them. And in fact, that Eagles team beat the crap out of them every time they played until the year that they kind of all put it together and they went on and won that first Super Bowl. That's how big that hurdle was for them, that mountain was for them to climb and get over and break through. And while I had a discussion with someone the other day that where the Seahawks are in their development, I don't think it's a must-win game in week 16. I think this team, we're probably talking about a year from now being where they think they want to be. But that's what that game would mean to them, is it would shift that national narrative that the quarterback can win a big game, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Especially the last 2 times we've seen Sam Darnold face that Rams team, it was ugly, quite frankly. And I think that is a real thing. I think it's a thing people are talking about. Now, let me flip the script on you, because people are saying, hey, all of a sudden that Seahawks offense doesn't quite look like it has the same juice that maybe it had earlier in the season. Would you agree with that?
To some respect, when you just look at the raw numbers and the productivity, and especially the explosive plays haven't been there. My optimistic retort to that would be that we are seeing progress from the running game. And I do like how Sam has responded coming off of that Rams game. I thought, there were a couple of plays against the Tennessee Titans that could have gone either way, that made you cringe a little bit. But I think in the 2 weeks since, and against a Vikings team that threw the kitchen sink at him. I mean, Brian Flores is about as unpredictable as they come and how he puts a game plan together. But I thought he was better at knowing when to give up on a play. He was dirtying the ball when he had to, throwing the ball away when he had to. And I think that leads nicely into our next final little segment here. I threw a little game at you. Or I'm going to ask an open-ended question about each of the three division contenders in this division. Let's start with the 49ers. So the way this works is if blank is to win the division, blank, right? So this is what is going to happen for each one of these teams in order for them to win the division. If the 49ers are going to win this division, why will that be?
Well, number one, they need help. But putting that aside, if the 49ers win the division, it'll be because Brock Purdy plays the way he played against the Browns. It finally clicked. I really think the light bulb came on because he talked about it in an interview this week about how I think he realized he can throw the ball away. He had 7 throwaways in the game against the Browns. He had 7 all year up to that point. And I think he realized, hey, we can still score 26 points even if I throw the ball away this many times. I really think somewhere in his brain, like he needed proof of concept for that, because that is when he gets into trouble. It's when he tries to put the cape on and be Superman, and he doesn't need to do that. And he had been turning the ball over constantly this year up until this point. If he stops doing that, they can win the division if they get the help that they need.
We didn't compare answers before the show. That's exactly what I said, although the way I worded it was if Brock Purdy gets hot. I think it was understandable that he was a little rusty. I don't know, maybe that's a lazy term in his first game back from missing so much time. But he looked efficient last week, but he can be more than that. And I think when he's rolling, he's the kind of quarterback that really causes headaches for defensive coordinators because it just doesn't matter what you throw at him. He's going to find the one answer that's out there and the one guy that's open because you brought pressure from here and he's got an answer over here. If he gets dialed in like that, that team can beat anybody, even with the injuries that they've experienced this year. All right, if the Rams are to win the division, why will that be?
This sounds so lame, but it's Matt Stafford will not throw the ball away. Like this will be a blip in the road rather than like a major derailment. Yeah, he had a bad game against the Panthers. He did. The guy's been the MVP arguably up to this point. As long as that is a blip in the road, if he goes right back to playing like he can, which look, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for 1 billion years. He knows these games happen. I'm sure he's not going to be, freaking out about anything. McVay will have a nice game plan for him. If he just goes back to playing the way he was playing, they are the best team. I really do believe that. So I got to say, yeah, I think if as long as that happens, they'll win the games they need to win and they'll be NFC West champs.
I went with if that secondary holds up. I mean, is it like the secondary we saw that completely shut down the Seahawks passing game and intercepted Sam 4 times and looked like they had more answers on defense than the Seahawks did? Or are they the secondary that got picked on a little bit by Bryce Young last week? I think that's the key for them. We know how good the front is. We know how good their linebackers are. They just extended Nate Landman. I think it just comes down to that. We like everything we see on offense. I think the only question on that roster is that defense. For the Seahawks to win the division, if the Seahawks are to win the division, blank.
Do you want to go first on this one?
Okay. They got to get right guard figured out. That's the thing. We saw some of that exposed against the Vikings. They've been living with that weak link, and I've been saying in his defense and in the team's defense that every team in the league, even the better offensive lines, the ones that are recognized as the best in the league, have a weak link, have a guy that they'd like to upgrade. It's how you work as a unit. And up until last week, they'd only given up 11 sacks. They're still on pace to give up the fewest number of sacks they ever have in a season. It's a remarkable improvement as a unit for an offensive line that for the last 10 years has been recognized as one of the worst in the league. And yet they finally ran up against a team in the Vikings that were able to expose that a little bit. And not necessarily Anthony Bradford himself. They weren't specifically picking on him, but they got in tune with how much they have to slide their protections at times to help Anthony Bradford. And they kind of took advantage of some of those weak spots as a result. Their 4 sacks really came from everywhere. Charles Cross got beat by Dallas Turner flat out on the edge one time. Abe Lucas got beat. But there might be some help on the way. Jalen Sundell, who started at center for the first 7 or 8 games of the year, has been on injured reserve. in his place, Oluwatimi's played so well at center that the thought is, and I've been predicting this for 2 weeks, when he comes off IR next week, he'll be given an opportunity to take that right guard spot. That offensive line is much better. It's promising, beyond promising, but it's not good enough as currently constructed to make a deep playoff run. I think that change could give them their best chance to do that. What's your answer?
I will say that is the defense needs to be the leader of this team. As good as the offense has been, and they've made a ton of big plays. I think they have the most explosive passing plays of anybody in the NFL. To me, this team is at its best when the defense is the unit that is driving everything. Your defensive front, they can just maul you. It is smothering at times. Because if they get behind and Sam Darnold has to hold the ball longer because he's waiting for things to open up downfield, that brings protection issues into play. That's not the best version of this Seahawks team. The best version of this Seahawks team is the defense locking it down, and then Darnold can pick up those chunk plays with the score close, or the Seahawks have a lead and they beat you through the air that way because Jackson Smith-Njigba is friggin' unstoppable. But to me, it's the defense. The identity of the Seahawks to me is defense first.
I think that's a good point. I think Sunday is kind of how they're going to need to win if they're going to beat some of these better teams left on their schedule and in the playoffs. And I don't mean it's not going to be 26-0. I mean that, maybe this offense, because of what I just talked about on the offensive line, isn't just quite ready yet to consistently week in, week out be a top tier offense, but they can be just good enough if that running game continues to improve that the defense can lead them. And maybe there's a couple ugly wins in their future. Maybe if you're going to beat the Colts, beat the Rams, you're going to have to do it kind of ugly, 17-13, 17-10, something like that, where you do have to settle for field goals at times. Maybe they take the explosives away and you have to find some other answers other than JSN. I think we'll find out some more the next couple of weeks. They're facing guys from the 49er tree and guys from, there's a lot of similarities over the next couple of weeks that might prepare them for the Rams. Also, I'll end on this note as well. I think you'll be happy to hear this. I started reading a book on my flight out here last week, a book called The Why is Everything.
I have read it.
And it's fantastic. And I can't wait to get into the rest of it. And when I'm finished with it, I'm going to do a whole show and review it. And I'll say this, the one thing that is evident to me, and I'm only through about 10% of the book so far, is that there's Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, right? And then there's all the other guys that came from that tree. and I even mean Mike McDaniel, who was a fantastic offensive coordinator. I think if he loses that head coaching job, he'll be hired in about 24 hours, if not less. But in terms of like how I'm judging Clint Kubiak and the discussion of whether or not he's a viable head coaching candidate, to which I've said not yet. And it's because you get the sense that while Clint Kubiak grew up in this offense and knows how to run it, McVay and Shanahan have innovated this offense and are thinking like 2-3 steps ahead. They're like master chess players. They're thinking about their next move after it instead of just calling the call on their call sheet they like in that situation. It's a remarkable read. I feel like I've learned something already, and I'm only 10% into the way.
Those other guys run the Shanahan and McVay systems. Shanahan and McVay create the system. They're the ones that orchestrate the whole thing. And I think there are enough differences now between Kyle and Sean McVay that they are two separate. They're similar, but there are some key differences there between the two. There is some stuff in there about Shanahan that scared the hell out of me. I'm not going to be honest. I talked about it all summer as I was reading this book. But just the way they all work behind the scenes, it is fascinating. And I think there's so much more overlap. These guys cross paths so many times as they're coming up that I think we don't think of it a lot of the times. We think of it just as like you're a head coach here and you were a head coach here and that's it. But it's hard to explain, but there's a lot of overlap there. There's a lot of working with each other. Hell, after the game against the Browns, Kyle Shanahan went up to Jim Schwartz and to Kevin Stefanski and had long conversations with them after the game, because I think it was, if there's a regime change in Cleveland, hey, Jim Schwartz, Robert Saleh gets a head coaching job. Like, there's so much over. They don't look at each other as like mortal enemies as much as we might think.
That would be a pretty 49er thing if they were to hire Jim Schwartz, if they were to fire that whole coach.
The guy that once tried to fight 49er coach Jim Harbaugh after a game, it would be phenomenal.
I think the most remarkable thing I've learned so far from that book, and I didn't really mean to get off on this tangent, but it's relevant, is how much Kyle Shanahan had to do with shaping what the offense is today that we know as the McVay-Shanahan offense. That he is the one, when he was the offensive coordinator in Houston, that decided to marry the wide zone running scheme with basically Bill Walsh's West Coast offense. He was the one that said, hey, let's take this, which also, by the way, I learned was basically invented by Kirk Ferentz. Didn't realize he was the godfather of the wide zone running scheme. And Kyle's the first one that went, hey, let's put these two things together. That blew me away.
It's crazy how this stuff, like when you go back and you get into the nitty gritty of like how coaches ended up where they end up, some of the reasons are just ridiculous. Like there's a book by Bob Glauber where he talks about Bill Parcells and Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs. And like Joe Gibbs ended up coaching on offense because one of the teams that he used to be coaching was doing a scrimmage against each other and they needed somebody to coach the offense. So they just picked him. That's it. Like they just picked him. And then he went on to be one of the most amazing coaches in the history of football that won multiple Super Bowls with multiple quarterbacks whose teams never get talked about among the greatest of all time. But it was just a random fluke, stupid thing like that because of the stupid team scrimmage. But stuff like that happens all the time behind the scenes.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, it was great to talk to you again. Thanks for catching up after the week off. We will reconvene again next week with Rob leading the way. Again, check out the Sleeper app. Thanks to them for being a great sponsor of both of our networks. Until next week, Rob, enjoy this week in the NFC West, the best damn division in football.
Amen.
We'll see you next week. Always great to talk to Rob. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Who is your favorite? Be as objective as you can. If all three of these teams play their best every single week, play up to their ultimate potential, who wins this division heading forward? Check out Fast Fashion Brewing if you would. You guys down in Soto on First Avenue next to Hooverville across the street from Showbox Soto. Best beers in Seattle. I'm telling you, their Bavarian Pilsner was just voted as one of the 20 best beers in the country by a leading magazine. Go check them out and say hi to Matt Storm. Tell him I sent you. All the other ways that you can help support me as an independent full-time content creator are listed and linked down below in the description. But the easiest thing, and the thing that's free, and all it costs you is a mouse click, subscribe to the channel. Best way to support me on YouTube. Also, check out the Patreon at nwforever.com. It stands for northwestforever.com. All of my content under one roof for one low price. Until next time, I'm Dan. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Thanks for watching, you guys.